A woman who figured out, she's not a medical professor. Years ago, she came to me and she had figured out how to live disease-free. She had MS, she had multiple sclerosis, and she lived symptom-free for 23 years at that time. Probably she's gone on for another decade. We haven't talked in a while. But when she systematized that and put it into a structure and named it, she was able to start taking clients in at $5,000 a pop, 12 at a time, lead them through a 90-day program. You do that 4 times a year, you're at a $250,000 business with, one assistant and a call a week. So that's the magic of the Nail Your Offer program. And before we finish, we'll offer you all a Nail Your Offer blueprint so you can kind of see what you're stacking against this and get started on the path.
Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Podcast. I'm Dr. Fleet Mall, and I'm excited to guide you on a journey of authentic transformation. In each episode, I'll bring you insights from leading experts to explore trauma recovery, mindfulness practices, positive psychology, and innovative breakthroughs in health, wellness, and life optimization. This is a space for real conversations that inspire meaningful change, helping you find alignment with the person you are always meant to be. Let's get started. What if transformation isn't just about thinking differently, but feeling differently? Science shows us that true change happens when we align not just our minds, but also the neural networks in our hearts and guts. This heart-mind connection is the key to deeper healing, resilience, and expanded awareness. That's why I created the Heart Mind All Access Membership and Community, a space designed to help you rewire your nervous system, cultivate heart intelligence, and live with greater clarity and purpose. With over 1,000 hours of transformational teachings specifically curated to meet your needs, you'll learn from world-renowned meditation teachers, neuroscientists, and experts in neuroplasticity, all sharing powerful tools to help you shift your mindset and heart set, regulate your emotions, and unlock your full potential. You'll also gain unlimited access to every summit and course we've ever produced, a treasure trove of wisdom worth over $10,000 and growing, plus live gatherings and an inspiring global community to support your journey. If you're ready to step into a more heart-centered, connected, and conscious life, I invite you to join us. Click the link to learn more and start your journey today. What if selling could feel like a sacred act of service rather than something we push through? In this week's conversation, I connect with Lisa Sasevich, an extraordinary entrepreneur, mother, and the renowned queen of sales conversion. Lisa's journey from corporate life to building a multimillion-dollar business while raising 2 children is nothing short of inspiring. We explore what it truly means to sell from a place of integrity. Lisa shares how she transformed her mindset around sales by replacing pressure with presence, and how you can too. From crafting irresistible offers to mastering high-ticket conversations without ever feeling salesy, Lisa walks us through her most powerful strategies. This is a conversation for every entrepreneur who knows they're here to make a difference and is ready to receive the abundance that comes from offering real transformation. My name is Dr. Fleet Mall, your co-host for this session, and I'm thrilled to be here today with Lisa Sasevich. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
So I was sharing with Lisa, with you before we got started here, that I first did one of your online trainings some 10 years ago or so. And I was a solopreneur, primarily a solopreneur, a consultant, but also a meditation teacher and workshop seminar leader. And the idea of selling in public and selling from the stage was just like terrifying to me. And I did your training, and I'd watched Tony Robbins do it. I'd been to his trainings. I'd seen people do it. Couldn't imagine myself doing it, but I did your training. And then I had a training coming up, a seminar I was leading called Radical Possibility. And I got it all set up, had a programmed offer, I had the back table, had my team back there to take orders. And at the right moment, I pivoted and I did it, and it was successful, and it blew me away. And I was amazed, and I was so grateful. And, I've been selling ever since, and enthusiastically. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. I'm always moved when I find out that people that I respect and admire, like yourself, were my students a decade ago. And sometimes I don't even know because it was an online digital course. And, there's definitely been times where we had 1,000 or more people learning our speak to sell method, our nail your offer method. So I didn't get to meet every person. And sometimes I'm in a situation like this and I find out like what you're telling me right now. And I just think my life purpose feels so fulfilled. And I know that's what, part of what you help people figure out. And it does feel so good to do that work. And it does feel so good to know that what you were made for is out there making a difference for other people. So thank you. If we ended right now, I'm on cloud nine.
That's great. And, we finally figure out that it really is all about adding value to people's lives. And when we get the confirmation that we are adding value to people's lives, we develop all the more confidence that to be in the flow of what we're doing. And it's not about selling people things they don't need. It's really about bringing value to people. And when we do that and have that mindset, it flows and works. But you were one of my early mentors in figuring that out. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, we always like to start our interviews with a little bit of your origin story. And I know it's almost not fair to really ask you to encapsulate that in a couple of minutes, and we have a lot to cover today. But I wonder if you would start, we described your journey in your bio a little bit. You were in corporate America, you learned a lot, you were very successful, you learned sales at that level, and then you decided to leave that world and start your own business. And while you were raising two toddlers, created a business from home that has really developed tremendous success for you and impacted so many lives like my own. So I wonder if you could talk about a little more about that journey and maybe any of the obstacles or the hiccups or the pitfalls along the way.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, like for all of us, there's lots of pieces to my journey. In fact, I was honored to write a book for Hay House a couple of years ago, right in the middle of the pandemic. It released called Meant for More. And we talk about the meant for more moment, that time when all of your different education comes together, be it your formal education, your school of hard knocks, just all the things, make us uniquely who we are. And I think the piece of my origin story that's most relevant, especially in the intersection of your work and mine, is that my mom passed away when I was young. I was 19 years old, just finishing up college at San Diego State. It happened pretty fast. It was cancer and was less than a year from diagnosis to the end. So there wasn't a lot of prep time. And she was a single mom. And I think I went on a quest for parenting, really, when I look back on it, to where was I going to get my guidance now? And I found personal development, and so I was really a child of personal development from 19 years old, which is a long, long time ago now. Thank God for these filters on Zoom. But, I found some different personal development organizations that really impacted my life. And whenever I would find one that I liked, I wanted to tell everybody about it. I mean, I just couldn't believe the things that I was hearing about possibility. I became a real child of what is possible for myself and I wanted for the people around me. And so I was one of those people that would share enthusiastically and bring lots of people to whatever organization it was that I was learning from. And it would take so much work to get my brother or my father, would fly in, people that I worked with, for them to come to these introductions and learn about these personal development seminars that were just expanding my world so fast. And then when we would get there, unfortunately, this diamond that, I loved the work. Unfortunately, when they led the introductions, it would turn into something that would make the people I brought feel pressured. Like they needed to register right now for these courses. And, it felt very pushy and salesy, which was not really my reference of having done the actual work there. So what I found is this personal pain, this disconnect between, this amazing work that was life-changing versus the process they were using to try to get people to sign up.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of some of the early days of Vest and other chains and other personal, where there's this whole focus on enrollment and it could be
Yes.
pretty intense. And yes,
And that was definitely, Landmark Forum, one of the biggest contributors to all things I consider awesome about myself, but also the place where I experienced that kind of a rub. And so wanting to have my own people register, wanting to make a difference in a bigger way, what I was seeing, not knowing that there was like multi-billion-dollar of industry that are also trying to register people from introductions and seminars and, whether they're in the legal field or direct sales, right? And like all of our companies, if we're doing webinars or we're speaking from stage and we want to move people from interested to invested, we kind of need a way to do it. And so it wasn't feeling real good to me there. And I got into the Introduction Leaders program and I just started playing with, if I only get one shot to talk to this person and I want to make a difference, what are the markers that I have to hit? What are the things that I need to include so that person feels, and I've come to give it a name now, tension versus pressure. And, the distinction being that the tension would be something rising inside them that I need to make this change. I want to make this change versus pressure, which comes from like feeling like someone else is pushing you to do something. And so, kind of not knowing that it would lead to this beautiful, 15-year career of teaching people how to do this, I just started toying with it. And then eventually I left corporate and I went to work for a small seminar company that was teaching relationship work, teaching women how to understand and appreciate themselves and how to understand and appreciate men. And that 6 years with that company, not only did we grow from about a couple 100,000 in sales to over 1 million in sales while I was there, but I got to practice the things that I had figured out and they worked. And so suddenly there I was just in a little bubble of this small seminar company leading these introductions. And for me, I have 70 or 80% of the women that would come to our introductions would register for our courses. I would go back to my hotel room, whatever city I was traveling to, spread the word. And I would be devastated about the 20 or 30% that didn't register. Right. And then I'd go back to work and obsessed of like, what could I have said different? How could I have structured it different? What else could I do? And when I eventually shared those numbers on a group mastermind call that I had enrolled in, the other people on the call, this was the first time I said it out loud to anyone, were like, you're closing 70 to 80% of a room? Like, I didn't know how extraordinary that was until I sort of leaked it out to other people. And then it just happened. I became really an entrepreneurial Cinderella story. We hit the Inc. 500 actually very quickly, number 169, which was, incredible. I was a mom with 2 toddlers in tow and my then husband going through medical school to become a surgeon. Like, I was only doing this just to keep us afloat until he graduated. So it all was beyond my own wildest dreams. And once I realized that there were so many organizations out there that this could benefit and that were already trying to use this model, both online and webinars and, masterclasses and also on stages and events, I really started to hone in, okay, I have some expertise around what I'll call leveraged selling. And the definition being when we're making our offer to more than one person at a time. We teach high ticket one-on-one selling and we teach, online launches and all the different formats. My sweet spot is that leveraged selling. And I learned that through, a pain of watching it happen in a yucky way. So,
And it's such an important thing to master for those of us who want to grow our business as entrepreneurs, especially those of us who are the founder or principal of a business and we want to sort of expand what one person can do. We have to build a team, we have to build a company, but also moving from one-on-one sales to what a lot of people today call one-to-many, right? So yes, that leverage selling you're talking about, absolutely. Another thing that struck me was your early experience with Landmark, because I found a lot of really successful people at some point or another connected with something like Landmark. I led a training for 25 years up until the pandemic. We haven't done it since, and we couldn't do it during the pandemic. It's not something you could do online, but it's a kind of the Landmark form on steroids, the smaller groups. But that context, and the name of my book is Radical Responsibility, so that we learn to live at choice and we learn to live to create our own destiny and manifest our own destiny. And it's really all about our own choices and how we respond to the circumstances of our life. And obviously that stood you well in the corporate world, but it also stood you well in terms of becoming a successful entrepreneur. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that context, how it helped you succeed along your entrepreneurial journey and deal with all the challenge you were dealing with as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, as a founder, as a mother of 2 young children, because it's so easy to let life push us into one kind of victim mindset or another and get us back on our heels instead of being in that place of what can I do, right? Living in that realm of possibility. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about maybe how what you got from the forum and from your life in general inspired you to have the energy to really keep staying in that realm of possibility.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and it's not asked to me often, so I love the chance to share it here. Thank you. So at Landmark, I really learned, and this is really how they would verbalize it way back 30 years ago then, it was to put my past in the past and create my future. And they have so many amazing tools. I mean, I really still to this day think that, for the minimal investment and 3 days of your life, that it is such a worthy way to spend those days to just transform your thinking. And I remember early on when I was, doing this and not a lot of other people I knew were, they'd say, well, you're getting brainwashed. And I thought, well, I mean, we wash our underwear, like there's a lot goes through that brain. And I think it kind of needs to be washed every once in a while and get a clean look and a clean slate. And the distinction that they offer around that we have what really happened. You may remember the circles on the board, right? And then there's a story we make up about what happened. And that most of us are living in that story we made up and not really able to just see what happened. And that was a huge distinction to just be like, okay, this is what happened. It's not necessarily my story. And what story do I want to create? What's the headline I want to create for my life? And I think even to this day, and I talk about this in the Meant for More book, I look at the headline that I want in the future, and then I keep taking action consistent with having that headline. And that has worked out for me pretty well.
I want to talk to you quite a bit more about sales and marketing, and but first I'd like to explore your journey just a little more. So you started your own, well, you worked with a company for a smaller seminar company for 6 years, and then that kind of evolved into your own work because you kind of developed a secret. You realized your people couldn't imagine you were closing 70% of the people showing up for a seminar of some kind. And so you started evolving your own business. And at the same time, you're raising two young children. Your husband's in medical school. He's super busy. And so you're having to navigate all this and manage your time and manage your life. And, I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs at certain times feel overwhelmed and just don't know how to organize the whole thing. So what was your secret sauce in terms of being able to keep moving forward as an entrepreneur while also being a mom and supporting your husband in medical school and so forth?
I think I didn't have a lot of family around me either. My mom passed away. My dad was in Florida and, doing his own life. And so any help that I had with my kids was literally purchased. It was like trusting that there was this angel in my life that was going to be a good person and have the best intentions for me and my kids along the way. And so I would say, number one, knowing, really prioritizing my priorities, my values. So, for example, I haven't really done laundry or washed a dish since I had my children because it was a choice for me. Was I going to work and then spend time with them, or was I going to work and do housework while I set them in front of the TV? And because things were blowing up for me quickly and I was coming into, and I didn't grow up with that. I mean, I had a single mom who, struggled, and even giving that to myself and allowing myself to make those non-conventional choices as a mother was something I feel like I continuously had to do. And from the outside, people might criticize and not understand, but I knew from the inside that I was making the best choices for what I wanted in regards to being close with my children, which I'm happy to say they're 18 and 21 now. They're both launched as of literally just months ago. So we call ourselves open nesters because this has not been an empty nest. All of our extra bedrooms and bathrooms constantly have visitors and friends and entrepreneurial friends coming through San Diego. So we love our open nest. And, I would go back and also say, to answer your question, the other thing that was a tool that I feel like I could share and, our listeners here could apply was batching. So if I would go to travel to speak or for my own events, I would do other things along the way. So instead of a 3-day trip, maybe it was a 5-day trip, and I'd also speak here and I'd also see a VIP client. Then I'd be home for 3 weeks, or 4. So I feel like even with my work schedule, I'll batch certain kinds of activities. And in fact, I was looking at the list of the 45 speakers that are here, and I'm a longtime client of both Joe Polish with Genius Network. For many years, I would go there. That was like one of the things I would batch in. So I was not only teaching, but I was also learning. And then also Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. And I really learned how to batch my time in, specific ways through those mentors. I'll also say, as far as batching, I was looking at the list here. Do you know that over 10 of the 45 speakers have been my VIP clients? So you're going to
Wow.
have a lot of reverberation of my teachings when they're talking about their irresistible offers. Everyone from Jack Canfield, JJ Virgin, John Assaraf, Dave Asprey, Natalie Ledwell, they've all been here out to do VIP work on their irresistible offers, their speak to sell talks, their 3-day events. So, and I batch, so I might have 2, 3 VIP clients in a row and really just get the help, put everybody, the kids, get them all settled, do that. And then I'm back. And then when I'm back, I'm fully back. So that's been some of the secrets. And one other thing I do want to say that I think I'm a little unique because I was not able to find mentorship on this when I was looking is that about 5 years ago, while we were at, millions of dollars in sales, 30% profit margin, 100 people plus in our big mastermind, like really the company that everybody wanted to be like, I wound it down. I got the message from the upstairs team that I looked and I had accomplished the goals personally and financially that I had wanted for my entire lifetime. And to take care of myself, my kids, and even a partner of my choice if I wanted to at this particular lifestyle for the rest of my life. And my kids were entering high school. And I knew that, there was a 3-year window that I would really have them right here close. And it was ironic because it was 90 days before we went into quarantine. And I had put 14 people on my team with all my friends' companies and really did a beautiful conscious wind down. And I couldn't find anyone that would actually just did that knew they're enough and did that didn't say, okay, I'm at 10 million now, I want to go to 100 million, which nothing wrong with that. But for my particular value set and what I was looking for, I kind of made a move that I didn't have a lot of. Usually I just find someone who's done it. And if it was successful, I hire them and I copy their model. So I think that's just another thing. And maybe it falls in batching because for 5, 6 years while I launched the kids, I was just semi-retired. I only saw VIP clients like yourself. And now I've put my toe back in the water. I'm certifying people on how to be nail your offer coaches, and I'm mentoring people in their offers and in group coaching again, mostly because my boyfriend's got enough coaching. And if I didn't get another project, he was worried about how much would transfer from the kids to him. So anyway, that's a little bit about me and like past, present, future, and how I run things.
Oh, it's amazing that you're able to do that. And I'm not surprised you couldn't find someone to mentor you or model you on that because it's pretty rare, I think, that people are willing to do that. But how wise on you to preserve that precious time you had with your 2 daughters during those years. And so glad you're back. Very happy back. Kind of wondered, where's Lisa Sasevich around lately,
She's rod and yell and rippy somewhere. Where the
So glad you're back. And also, listening to your story in the earlier days of it, that I don't know when his book came out, but you were early modeling Dan Martell's buy back your time approach, right? And that's when we really think about it, a lot of us feel, the kids is a special thing, but there's all kinds of things we do because, well, you just should do that yourself. You should cut your own grass. You should do this. You should do that. And if you really want to focus and be successful, we have to put our energy where our real talents are and where it's going to have the biggest impact and be willing to bring others in to work with and accomplish all kinds of things in our business and our personal life to really leverage our time. And I think there's some great modeling in that. So let's just talk about sales and what sales conversion really means. And, they really get even into the energy of it. Like, what is it really, what's the process of sales conversion, the psychology of it, the energy of it? And as an entrepreneur, how can we really grok that? We can learn all kinds of techniques and, we can get lots of books and we get frameworks and models and tools, but how do we get into the essence of it and really understand it?
I appreciate the question. You're a great interviewer, by the way. Well, first off, just to look at it from a pure definition, like a statistic, sales conversion, when we track it in a company, it's telling us of this many people that we talked to or spoke in front of, or that were at our event, so this many eyeballs, a lot of people call, how many became clients, right? So if there were 10 people in your audience and 3 became clients, you're at 30% sales conversion. So that's, before getting into the energetics, that's just like the flat out business statistic of it. And also from more of a business statistic side, if you have 10 people in your audience and I can teach you how to have 5 of them say yes and become your client from the same amount of energy, you still did your 90-minute talk or your webinar, right? Wouldn't you say that is a worthwhile thing to focus on? Because now you're at 50%. if those clients are paying $10,000 a piece, right? You went from 30,000 to 50,000 with the same energy outlaid. The other piece that's so magical is that your client acquisition cost was the same. The things that we do, Fleet, you and I, to attract clients are the most time consuming and the most expensive, right? The most cost consuming things in our business. It's all the social media we do. It's all these interviews that we're doing right now, right? It's all these things we do to serve and attract new clients. So I've always felt like I grew this up as a busy mommy where I needed the shortest line between 2 points. And so it was coming from that energetic. Now we get back to the energetic side that, I think companies spend a lot of time and money thinking that what they most need to invest in is growing their list and new eyeballs, right? And butts in seats. Like they want more people. And with social media, especially now, your status is based on how many people are following you. I want to see who you are and look at your page. And, it's funny, people actually can't tell who I am and what I've accomplished because I might have 50,000 people on Facebook and 10,000 people on Instagram. And in today's standard, if you're not at millions, you're not anybody, right? If we look at that. But I focus on sales conversion. So I'm, one of the most profitable entrepreneurs that I've met. And I want to, as long as it is mine to do, I want to serve that client and serve the people that I've already served. I want to see how I can serve them more, either with my work, if it's in my wheelhouse of my expertise, or by referring them to somebody who it is in the wheelhouse of what they need. And I monetize that too, right? Through affiliate relationships. So energetically, I'm a little bad. My advice is a little opposite of a lot of what you hear out there. For example, I think it's more important to start by focusing on your irresistible offer, because otherwise, any eyeballs that you attract, if we're not converting them, it's like it's costing us more to get them, right? It's costing we need bigger teams. We're taking care of more people, but we're not converting at a high level. So it's not efficient. Once you've got your offers nailed down and they're converting, then sure, ramp up those Facebook ads, run more webinars, all the things. And then in my new Nail Your Offer Certified Coach program, we're just taking our first 30 coaches. They're about to get certified, and I'm about in April to launch the second cohort. It's really my legacy. That move is to have other people be able to take my work out and enjoy the fruits of my labor and their own. But I just taught upsells yesterday. There's a piece that they are certified in and how to train people to craft high ticket upsells. And that's another one where everything I just said is exponentially multiplied, because now we're taking a client who already loves us. They've already paid us. There's no client acquisition costs. And upsells, of course, are even more profitable because generally we're going up with not just intimacy and access, but also in the ticket of the offer. So we can, start getting into those, 10, 20, 30, $100,000 offers, depending on your industry. So I really think sales conversion is not the thing to do after you've attracted the crowd. I think it's the thing to nail down first. And then maybe you don't need as big a crowd, unless it's just about making a difference for more people, which is part of the mission too.
I know a lot of your work in terms of your own business has been based on what we might call high ticket offers, coaching programs and VIB coaching relationships and so forth. And then a lot of what you've been training people to do is how to attract clients and create sales conversions around high ticket offers. So how does that work in terms of, and sometimes we talk about a value ladder and moving people from lead magnets and very inexpensive product up the value ladder to a high ticket offer. And then we also go, well, a lot of the people that are interested in that high ticket offer, they're not interested in that value ladder. They don't want to mess with all that. They just, they want somebody to meet their needs. And when somebody communicates that they're going to meet their need, they're ready to write the check and sign up. How do you access those folks? How do you find those decision makers or individuals that have the ability to do a high ticket offer? So what I'm pointing to here is now, what's the relationship between sales as you've excelled at it and taught it and marketing?
So you're in relation to trying to attract that potential high ticket buyer, for example.
Getting the right people in the room, getting the right people in the funnels.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of great questions in that question. I'm trying to tease out which way to go. This is another place where I'm a little bit contrarian to what's out there and the advice that's mostly given. So a lot of times by the time people find us, we have to correct this. I am an advocate for having my clients and experts of any kind. Anyone selling intangibles is really my client base, right? If you're selling your services, your expertise, your coaching. So if you're not shipping a box, you're probably my ideal client. And so I would prefer to see you start out as the premier provider. I would prefer to show you the markers to hit and how to position and package yourself for your marketing so that you start out with high ticket sales. And what that does is it allows us to start out maybe not going to big group programs, but one-on-one high ticket so that we get immediate cash flow. We get immediate testimonials from people who actually do the work because when they pay attention, usually. And so it starts us out going to market that, hey, I'm Nordstrom, I'm Bloomingdale's, right? Versus, I think the majority of the advice that's given is like, let's create a lead magnet and then go to a tripwire and then something low ticket. And, now what we're looking at is the person, if it's successful, they need a big team because they're serving lots of people. They're serving buyers on the low end of the commitment and investment spectrum who generally need more and do less work. I hate to say it, but this is just what I've seen over the years. My VIP high level clients like yourself and, 30% of the speakers on this summit, they're the best clients ever. I could give them unlimited access to me and they just call with what they need and they want it and they're out and they do the work. I would rather, the advice that's currently given across the board is, start out as Walmart and then you'll show them that you're Nordstrom. I don't think it really works that way. You start out at Target and you get known as Target, you're Target. Right. So I would prefer to see someone start out high ticket. And I was literally years into my business before I came up with a low ticket offer because I had to for, a summit or stage I was on that required something under $500. So I came up with something like it was like a little piece of my bigger system. But we were years out there. And when I say high ticket, by the way, just for definition in our campus, it's over $2,000 offers. Anything over $2,000, we categorize as a high ticket because it requires a different sales structure for the most part.
You made some really important points there because selling low ticket B2C takes a big team. It's very expensive. The profit margins get very squeezed, right?
Yeah.
And you started off that way. I'm thinking of all, the entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and bootstrapping entrepreneurs out in our audience, and maybe even some of the aspiring entrepreneurs, and maybe thinking, well, I don't know if I have confidence to sell a product that's 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000. If somebody did give me $10,000, could I really deliver so that they wouldn't feel like they've been taken, right? I mean, how did you find your way into the confidence that you could create that much value for people and be able to communicate that with confidence so they were willing to sign on with you?
Appreciate that. And that is the first place we start with people. In fact, before we finish our interview, I have a gift for y'all to get started with this. So we have a program called Nail Your Offer. And this is the first place I start. It didn't matter whether it was like, Frank Kern, one of the original internet marketers, or John Assaraf or Brian Tracy knocking at my door. We started with all these clients with Nail Your Offer, even when they had, developed businesses. And the way you get the confidence is when you have the clarity. This is what Nail Your Offer provides. And it's what I do whenever I create something new, and you see it in every one of my programs that I have done this process is, and by the way, it's based on a book that many of us already know and love. So I did not create this thought. Napoleon Hill is the first place that I got this idea through Think and Grow Rich. And it's the part where he talks about, it's not your quantity of knowledge that will bring you a great fortune, right? It's not the letters after your name or how much you know. So you can keep adding those letters and keep getting degrees. It's not necessarily going to lead to a great fortune. He says it's knowledge intelligently organized. So if we believe that, if we buy that or we want to test that out, that it's not how much knowledge we have, it's how we organize our knowledge that will bring us a great fortune. That means that you listening and watching this right now, if you got some expertise and you helped yourself with something that you want to help other people with, right? If you could organize that knowledge, I call it pick your own brain, right? If you could pick your own brain and then put it into a system and help other people then walk the steps that you did in an organized fashion, This is where the confidence comes from, because now you've got a system. You've picked your brain. So instead of everybody taking you to Starbucks so they could pick your brain about how you did XYZ, you do it. And then that is what becomes the content for your high ticket coaching or program. And you start to develop confidence because now you end up naming this as a system. This is Nail Your Offer walks you through all this. You clarified the steps people are going to take. And suddenly this magical thing happens, Fleet. Your intangible starts to feel tangible. Suddenly we have, for example, what you referenced from over 10 years ago, the speak to sell formula, right? And instead of, hey, Lisa, she's this girl that teaches one-to-many sales, like I have this licensed trademark speak to sell formula that's helped now over 15,000 people. It feels like I'm shipping a box, And so I get confidence and you get confidence that there's something there that I can invest in and I'm going to get returns. And the other thing that happens is that when I go to coach it, I'm coaching in a system. So it's not just Fleet shows up for his coaching call and what do you got coming up and what can we patch together for you? And let's hope Lisa woke up on the right side of the bed. No, I'm going to say, Fleet, today we're going to work on seeding. This is how you create hunger and desire in your audience throughout your talk without being pushy or nudgy or salesy. And you're like, great, I want to learn seating, right? And then the next day you show up and I say, today we're going to work on positioning. This is how like the first 15 minutes of your talk will establish how well you close in the last 15 minutes of your talk. So when you start to organize your knowledge, then you start to be able to speak about it with confidence. It becomes a clear, compelling, and what we call an irresistible offer. And so that's how you take someone that, maybe like I've a woman who had figured out, she's not a medical professor. Years ago, she came to me and she had figured out how to live disease free, we called it. She had MS, she had multiple sclerosis, and she lived symptom free for 23 years at that time. Probably she's gone on for another decade. We haven't talked in a while. But when she systematized that and put it into a structure and named it, she was able to start taking clients in at $5,000 a pop, 12 at a time, lead them through a 90-day program. You do that 4 times a year, you're at a $250,000 business with, one assistant and a call a week. So that's the magic of the Nail Your Offer program. And before we finish, we'll offer you all a Nail Your Offer blueprint so you can kind of see what how you're stacking against this and get started on the path. But that's the way, and it's the way I've used and the way I'm a one-trick pony I've continued to help people do for all these years.
Where you described the essence of the sort of the information or knowledge industry, online education, and so forth. We take some transformation that we've been through and perhaps guided some others through. And then we figure out, okay, how do you structure that? What was the structure? What were all the elements that led to my own transformation? And it's how you package that into something where it's going to be replicable and it's going to guide other people to the same result. And that's actually brilliant. And I think especially for those of us who are, hopefully ideally, and I think it's often the case, that we're really trying to replicate our own transformational journey into an online knowledge product of some kind of program or service. And if we do that, the confidence that we have in there worked for me, it's probably going to work for others, right? And then we still have to communicate it. We still have to enroll people in it. So talk a little bit about this idea of the irresistible offer.
Yeah. So there's 2 distinctions. I like to kind of get the languaging out. This is definitely my landmark background, talking in distinctions, right? But it helps us kind of be on the same page and move quickly. So there's the offer and then there's the irresistible offer. And I like to draw a distinction between the two. So the offer is really the part where we're talking about what is that outcome or transformation? Like you just mentioned, there's this transformation that we want to impart to the world. And then there's how we deliver it. So maybe we do deliver it through a digital course or a coaching program or one-on-one VIP engagement. So when you put together the transformation and the way it's delivered, we call this the offer. Okay. And by the way, this is all in that irresistible offer blueprint because I know you might be getting like a hand cramp trying to note this all down. So
The link is right down below, so everybody's can have access to that.
yeah, I mean, they can note all of these things, but I'm going to pull out the pieces that are most important here. So then there's the irresistible offer. The irresistible offer is when we take the offer. So now we've clarified the transformation that we want to provide. We know how we're providing it. And when we want to make that offer irresistible, we add a few things to it. And it's really kind of depending on how you're selling, but the most common elements that we add to an offer to turn it into an irresistible offer, and a place for y'all to start, are called bonuses and limiters. And bonuses and limiters work in tangent with each other, and we add them to the offer. And I like to call the offer the main dish, just so I have language, right? So we've got the main dish, which is the transformation plus how you provide it. Then we've got the bonuses and the limiters. So those are the three elements that make up an irresistible offer. Now, there's lots to learn. We talked a lot about the main dish. The main dish includes your system. You've picked your brain. What's your formula for success, right? It includes your way you're going to deliver that. And hopefully that not just works for your client, but for your lifestyle. I care a lot about both parts. So then we get into bonuses and limiters, and I can, if you'd like, Fleet, I could drop a couple thoughts, a couple tips on, how to think about bonuses and limiters.
Most of us are probably familiar with the idea of bonuses and in a bonus stack with an offer and so forth. But talk about limiters to begin with.
Okay, I'll just say on bonuses that you want them to handle the biggest objections, right? So your bonuses should pre-think why someone wouldn't buy and then make that a bonus, because that's kind of doing the job for you. And the other thing I'll say is I'm just a big advocate for having very few bonuses, not a big stack. Unless you're in something like a summit or a book launch, like we are here, where lots of speakers are putting in bonuses, that's a little bit of an exception. But for the entrepreneur just selling their own product or service, I'm a fan of just a couple of bonuses, 1 to 3. And what I care most about is that they're tightly related to the offer. You want to ask yourself, does this handle an objection? And would this person pay the whole thing just to get the bonus? Probably all know that, but I thought I'd just throw that in there. A couple tips.
No, really important. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Just some things we don't think about often, but we may have heard before. And but the limiter, per your question, the limiter is really where people fall short because they're afraid at this point that if they have a limiter, and it's usually of quantity or time, those are the two main limiters you want to play with. They're afraid if they say at this break only or only on this webinar with quantity, the first 6 people or the first 600 people, people get, or right now on this call only, but there's a scholarship available if you decide on this call. That would be like in a strategy session model. People are afraid to get that out of their mouth because that is the very piece that gives us that, oh my God, I'm going to be that used car salesman. I'm going to be pushy or salesy. It's right at that moment when we're going to use the limiter.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole thing about urgency and scarcity and,
Yeah.
am I manipulating people? And then we've all seen a lot of marketing and we've felt, and part of the psychology, I mean, the limiters, one way I've often thought about it, I've seen some really successful selling from the stage. And I know it involves all these psychological principles and there may be some NLP involved. There may be a lot of things involved. And if they were selling snake oil, I might have some issues about it.
Right.
If what we're marketing is something that's going to really add value to people's lives, but human psychology being what it is, they probably just won't step across that line into their next possibility if we don't create a pathway for them somehow. So I don't know if that resonates with you, and you may have a lot more to say about how to use limiters, how to use scarcity, how to use urgency without being salesy, without the high pressure.
Well, I will give just, one big tip, and I'm going to take it right out of our Speak to Self formula. So we have, the formula that Fleet learned that you can use on webinars or stages. And when you get to the part where you're making the offer, it's critical to use a limiter. And why is because if you don't use a limiter one-on-one from a stage, from a webinar, it doesn't create that urgency for someone to buy now. So that tension that is really what has to be there for someone to part with their hard-earned time, money, and energy, right? They're making a decision that I'm going to give you time, money, and energy in order to invest in this. If you don't have a limiter, then the natural bent of the human being is to put it on a sticky, check your website, put it off, ask some friends, like do all the other things except get it right now. So yes, I agree with Fleet 1,000%. If you believe in what you're doing, then you want to help people jump that broom. So I want to give you guys something that you can use right away, straight from our Speak to Self formula. It's called Justify. You'll see it if you happen to have the formula or invest in it one day. So That moment where we're going to say, at this break only, you get $1,000 off, or the next 6 people get a one-on-one session with me in addition to the package, right? Or I only have time in my schedule for 12 strategy sessions next week. At that moment, when you want to skip that because you're afraid to feel pushy or salesy, the reason is that you have not pre-thought your authentic justification for why you're doing it. So if you don't tell people, then they have to make it up. And what are they going to make up is that you just want their money. And then that feels terrible to people like all of you and I and Fleet, because we know that we're here for a bigger purpose, but can't help it. When you're making the offer, you're the sales guy, even if you're a girl. So if you pre-think the authentic justification of why you're doing the limiter and you share it, it will help you get it out of your mouth. And so a couple quick examples would be, look, I know there's 6 more speakers after me in this summit, right? So and as amazing as what you learned is, so is the next person going to be amazing. And I want to make sure this is in your inbox. So for the next X minutes, and if I was making an offer, I'm going to bribe you. I'm going to give you $1,000 off. So if you even know this is partly for you, use this coupon code, go right now. And if you do that before I stop talking, you'll get $1,000 off. But you tell them why. Or on a strategy session, look, if you're ready to go right now, Fleet, and you want to do some VIP work together, I have a scholarship. We call it a fast action scholarship. It's only for people who are ready to take fast action. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm passing on the savings to you. Like, it's $2,500 fast action scholarship. It means that the next time we're talking, we're coaching. It's not another call to talk about if we should work together. So if you're right there and this is going to happen, let me pass the savings on to you. Let's schedule our first coaching call and let's do this thing, right? So I'm telling you the truth. Now, the thing that will ruin you is if you use inauthentic limiters, like I only have 6 copies of my ebook. Like, don't do that. People are smart. So if it's authentic and you can express it, then it keeps the tension. It actually raises the tension, the internal tension. You're not being pushy. You're just what Landmark calls committed, but not attached, right? I got that one from them. You're committed that they make a decision. You're not attached to what the decision is, right? But you're making it very irresistible that if they think they're going to do it tomorrow, why not do it today?
So I think this is something that many entrepreneurs and many people developing various sales approaches, marketing funnels, and so forth forget. Why should the customer buy now? What's their reason for buying now? If we don't give people a reason to buy now, they're going to wait. And then you got 5 million other people wanting to market something to them before they're going to circle back to you, right? If they ever do, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think, and being able to authentically justify it, quite wonderful. Yeah. There's a lot of people like yourself that teach marketing, teach sales, and teach entrepreneurship. And they're basically teaching to other entrepreneurs and other marketing and other salespeople. And then the people using these techniques to sell other types of services, like the client you mentioned, who was helping other people live illness-free, right? Because she had managed her own symptoms and become symptom-free. But one thing I've enjoyed with many teachers of marketing is they're teaching marketing while they're marketing to me and explaining how they're marketing to me and selling me at the same time. And I know it's going on and I'm still buying in.
That's what's amazing. You might remember, I don't know if you ever came to our live events, but a couple of your speakers, like Jim Quick used to speak at our live events, Mike Koenig. So there's a lot of love in this whole summit here for me.
Great group of people, an amazing group of people.
It's amazing who you've attracted. It says so much about you, really. I mean, look at the star-studded lineup and that everybody here gets to learn from. I mean, what you all are getting part of, let me tell you, if I had what Fleet's offering, 15 years ago, I could have shaved years, off of my own journey. So, I mean, if you can get your hands on this at any kind of higher level, I don't really know what the offers are, but I'm just telling you, I know the lineup. I've trained a lot of these people, or they're my mentors. Like, this is the cream of the crop lineup here. I just want to say.
This thing about selling without feeling salesy, you've been touching this in many ways, and you talked about the distinction between tension and pressure. And I know you talked about even like if you're doing a webinar or you're on, say, the idea of seeding, and so you're building that hunger. What's the person hunger? Their hunger for their own possibility, right? And you're creating that sense of possibility for them. So what are some of the other ways that we can really do that. And I guess there's two levels about the salesy thing. I mean, one, we don't want to come across as salesy, right? Because that's probably not going to be that effective. It's going to turn people off.
Right.
But we also all have this antipathy to feeling that way ourselves. We don't want to feel that way ourselves, right? And I think that holds a lot of us back from becoming effective salespeople, effective marketers. Because if we're in business, I mean, I like what Russell Brunson says. I mean, if you're not selling, you're not in business. Business is selling and selling and selling, and you have to master the art of selling. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more about how we can really step into that and step into our game and get beyond this fear around being salesy. Because in some ways, if we're full of fear about being salesy, we're more likely to come across as salesy in some ways.
Totally. Yeah, you manifest the thing you're afraid of, right? It's right there in front of you. So you were talking about how you have people who teach sales and then or marketing, and they're actually marketing to you while they're selling you their course on marketing. Or, for me, I like to model seating. I've done it 100 times during this interview because I want to show you what I'm talking about and show you what it feels like. And hopefully you haven't wanted to run from the room with your hair on fire because you're getting so much value. And that's really what there is for you to learn. And here's the good news. We have to package ourselves as sales trainers because that's the result, right? Like, so I'm on the sales and marketing day. But, I think I'm really a sales training company smuggling personal development. It's no accident that, our published book, I have a lot of books we've published ourselves, came out through Hay House, right? Because I'm like that straddle individual, right? I've grown up in the land of possibility. And so the thing you shared about how people that teach sales and marketing are actually doing it while they're teaching it, that's the thing that I want y'all to get is that you don't actually need sales training. It's structure. It's really when I tell you what we honestly do is we give you structures to plug into so that you can hit the markers. In our campus, we only have 5 courses. There's Nail Your Offer and then the 4 different ways to lead to it. It's from stage with Speak to Sell, high ticket selling is one-on-one, event profit secrets is 3-day events, and webinar launch system is, for your online launch. And that's all we got, guys. If you're selling an intangible, it's one-on-one, it's one-to-many, it's from an event, or it's online. And that's my whole product line. Like that's it. And we call it the Love Your Life Sales Machine. And, when people go through all that, they're ready with the structure. That's the point I want to make, the structure for any of those situations. And I remember after years of selling, I mean, I sold millions of dollars probably for Pfizer, for Hewlett Packard. I worked for big companies. And I remember when I got to go to offer my own thing, like so many of you are doing, it was a whole different thing. I had sweat rings down to here the first time I spoke. I was wearing a silk blouse, and I'll never forget, like there was no hiding it. My hands were visibly shaking, and I had sold millions for other companies. And I know many of you have experienced this who are doing your own thing. What will give you the confidence that Fleet talked about, and what will give you the ability to sell in all these different, 4 formats that make up 90% of where you'll be asked to make your offer, or where you'll want to, is the structure. And I think it was Landmark. I'm not sure where I got it. Structure gives you freedom. I learned early on. And it's a little bit counterintuitive because, right, we take off our pantyhose and our neckties and we say, oh, I'm doing my own business. But if we don't consciously put in structure, it's a mess, right? We never get anywhere. So structure for doing your one-on-one sales calls, structure for how to nail your offer, structure for bonuses and limiters, structure for picking your brain and putting it into an organized formula, structure for Speak to Sell, the course that you originally met me from, is really the name of the game. So if I really say what we do is we give you the structures to just pour your work into, and that's what gives you the confidence to get out there. That's what gives you the ability to sell high ticket right from the get-go. And I kind of say, when you have the structure, you don't need to sell. You don't. You let the structure do the selling. And you, what I like to call, invite pursuit. You don't have to pursue business. You can invite pursuit when you hit the markers that people need in order to make a decision.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think structure is everything. And when you tune into that, and there are different structures and different approaches that people teach. But once you've tuned into that, and then you're listening to people who are successfully selling in webinars on the stage, you immediately pick up on their structure, right? Once you become a student of this, right? And then, you can refine your various structures because you see the way this person, I mean, there's some standard thing that almost everybody does kind of universally, but people tweak it a little bit this way. But it's all about structure. And when you see, really successful communicators are their mind is very organized, and their structure, their communication is really well organized. I mean, that's what makes them a great communicator. I've been teaching people to teach meditation and to guide meditation for the last 50 years. And I work with scripts and templates and structures with them, and they really resist it. And I said, no, you got to work with the structure, get this in your bones, and then you'll develop your own style, your way of doing it. But you'll have a structure in your bones, because when you listen to people do it who have not gotten that structure into their bones, they're all over the place. And they're just saying whatever comes into their mind, that some of it may be okay, but it's hard to follow. And it doesn't really move people or connect people to the practice. And you can always tell when a meditation teacher is really well trained, because the way they're presenting the practice is really well organized in terms of what information does the person need now, and then what do they need, and what do they need, and what do they need, right? So I think structure is everything. And as salespeople in business, we're communicators, right? We need to learn to communicate in really effective ways. And so I think that's just gold, what you shared with us. And I really encourage our audience to check out your structures and your teaching around structures. So this has been really illuminating and joyful for me, because it's come full circle for me to finally connect with you personally after all these years. Where can people connect with you online? And you mentioned you have a free gift and offer that people could learn more, and then possibly learn more about your work and so forth. So where do they go?
Well, thanks for asking. I do want to say that to your point, what happens is we will teach. I remember when Brian Tracy put me on the main stage for National Speakers Association years ago. It was such an honor. I mean, wow. I was like a break dancer teaching the Joffrey Ballet, right? Like, I was not a trained speaker. And the thing that he always talks about is that, like, while I'm teaching Speak to Sell, I'm speak to selling. So I'm teaching the structure. They can see it, they know it, and they still get up and run to the back of the room and buy. That's the thing, because it's respectful. It's giving them what they need to make a decision. It's in my opinion, the highest level of service is to study those structures that give people what they need for their transformation. So to get started, you can go to lisasasevich.com/fleet. So you'll put in Fleet's name, FLEET, lisasasevich.com/fleet. And the best thing I can possibly offer you is really, it's like an audit of your own irresistible offers. We call it the Irresistible Offer Blueprint. You'll see the things we talked about. You'll see some things we didn't have time to talk about. And if you want to take it beyond that, and you want to just go to lisasasevich.com, you'll see across the top some of the new things I'm doing. We're certifying people. So if you want to help other companies to nail their offer, you could be a Nail Your Offer certified coach. And I've recently started a twice-a-month mentorship where you can come on twice a month, bring your calendar, look at what offers you have coming up, and get my coaching. And I think that's under mentorship across the top line. So you kind of shop around, see what we've got going these days. And of course, all the programs that I mentioned here, they're all listed under digital programs, and they're there to help you. If you have a talk, a launch coming up, you want to create a high-ticket program, it's all tested. You are not my test rats. 15,000 clients and $50 million in sales prior to you. So you can count on some really great structures.
Well, I encourage people to take action right now. Don't wait. The link right down for the free offer is right below this video. So take action now and make sure you follow through, because this is gold. And thank you so much, Lisa.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on the Radical Responsibility Podcast. Remember, real change happens when we commit to our growth, face our challenges with compassion, and stay open to transformation. If you found this episode helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and help us spread the message of healing and personal empowerment. Stay grounded, stay present, and stay true to you. Take care.